During my career in Whitehall, I had to tell ministers some truths they did not always want to hear but had to be informed about. So what are my successors likely to be saying this summer as the Brexit crisis drags on? There are 3 hard facts that ministers and MPs need to take with them on holiday. First, the Brexit clock is ticking fast. In 249 days, Britain will lose access to the single market and to the EU's preferential trade deals with countries from Japan to Canada. That is now the default position. It should worry our elected representatives just as much as it worries businesses large and small across the country. Second, the government now has no credible Brexit strategy. The White Paper was at best a political signal that the UK was ready to move towards shared rules on customs and single market regulation. When Theresa May accepted the wrecking amendments of the pro-Brexit European Reform Group MPs without a vote, she signalled that she either would not or could not turn her proposal into anything with a real chance of agreement in Brussels. It is now dead in the water. Third, Britain needs time to come up with a credible position that can stop the leakage of jobs and investment out of this country turning into a torrent, and head off the risk of a sterling crisis in the autumn. The draft withdrawal agreement guarantees business full EU market access until the end of 2020, not long enough to negotiate a detailed, permanent trade deal, though a lot better than nothing. But the EU has been clear. That agreement only happens if the UK makes good on its repeated commitment to avoid new border controls in Ireland, whatever may happen in the wider talks. The amendments voted by Parliament have made that harder, by opposing customs controls in the Irish Sea, so our MPs have a real choice to make between the sandcastles and the swimming pools. Are they prepared to tell the government that if Brexit is going ahead there must be rapid agreement on the transition deal to 2020, including acceptance that there can be no new barriers on the Irish border? That course means Westminster signing up to Northern Ireland staying within the full customs union and internal market rules, to keep the same market access to Ireland and the rest of the EU as now. If the rest of the UK chooses to be less open to Europe, then there will have to be more controls on goods crossing the Irish Sea. Northern Ireland voted to remain in the European Union. Businesses on both sides of the Irish border are increasingly integrated. So is healthcare, transport and even education in border areas. Parliament should give the Northern Irish themselves the final decision on whether the fallback option that preserves this openness now and in the future is acceptable. A referendum in Northern Ireland may be needed to give its citizens a decision on their economic future. If the Assembly remains suspended, then a Northern Ireland referendum may be needed to give its citizens a direct decision on their economic future. My belief is that they would choose to keep the Irish border open in all circumstances. They certainly deserve the right to decide that issue themselves. Without some new thinking to resolve the Irish border issue, MPs risk no deal on the withdrawal, no transition and a chaotic EU departure starting on the morning of March 30th next year. That hard Brexit means a sudden end to the level playing field for British goods and services across Europe, and no access to the EU's third country agreements. In total, around 3/5 of UK trade would be either disadvantaged or, in parts of the service sector, stopped completely. The prospect of motorway queues as the 4 million cross-channel goods vehicles a year get clogged up in new border bureaucracy, £20 billion of extra overheads on businesses, reducing competitiveness and raising prices, and an end to supply chains is all too real. Meanwhile, better global trade access for solo Britain has been exposed as the fantasy it always was. There are no exciting new markets waiting for buccaneering Britain. Even the EU's existing trade deals will not be rolled over on the same terms to the UK alone, because our economy is only a fifth as big and so we have less to offer in return. In the real world, the United States is pursuing an America First policy, weakening global trade rules and undermining the World Trade Organization. U.S. protectionism has started a global trade war with China and Europe, which is set to get rapidly worse. There is no chance of more open markets in America for British firms. UK growth and productivity are already weak. Firms are reducing their investment here and increasing it abroad. Job losses will inevitably follow. Without some certainty that the UK's frictionless trade with Europe and goods and services will continue, we may find ourselves in a self-inflicted recession by 2019 as business confidence in a managed Brexit collapses. Time is short. When schools and Parliament restart in September, MPs should take detailed control of the Brexit process. They have to decide how to limit the damage it has already caused, reassure business and set the government a realistic negotiating goal of a shared customs union and frictionless single market access. To gain the time needed to achieve that needs a clear parliamentary commitment that the Irish border will stay open in all circumstances. Because if not, we will be facing a hard winter of deadlocked negotiations, a looming economic crisis and no way back from a chaotic Brexit in the spring. Sir Martin Donnelly is a former senior civil servant.